This is TalkLoudRadio.com.
Watch the deep one for the end zone. Phelan is down there. Oh, he got it! He got it! He got it!
What is going on, guys? All right, welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Show, episode 32, presented by Talk Loud Radio. Of course, you can find us on all your major podcast networks, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, the whole nine. We come live every Tuesday night here on Facebook Live on the Going for Two Facebook page. And, of course, we are streaming in the now newly redesigned Going for Two app. So glad to be back, guys. I know it's been a couple weeks. The last 2 weeks, I've had some things come up, semi-emergencies that came up that I couldn't do a podcast. My oven actually caught on fire, and my house almost burned down. So a little bit of an interesting situation there, but couldn't do a podcast, obviously. So, but I'm glad to get back on here, do a podcast, talk some fantasy football here in July. We got some great guests coming on tonight, a couple new guests. We're actually going to be doing a debate podcast tonight. We're going to have three guys on that I've got their rankings. I've picked out a few players that they all disagree on, and we're just going to set them up to debate on it. So let's go ahead and introduce the guests here. So first up, we got he writes for everywhere. I mean, he writes for Fantasy Pros, Rotoballer. I mean, he writes everywhere. He's on a podcast, co-host of the Fantasy Forensics podcast. Jason Katz, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, glad to have you on, man. I've seen you on Fantasy Pros for a while there. I always see your name whenever Blaine puts out the little article choices and stuff, and I always see you signing up for everything, man. So you're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I like to write whatever I can. I also write for FF Today. Throw that in there, too. You should give them a little bit of publicity.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
yep.
I'm a big fan of it.
Good deal. Tell us about your podcast a little bit real quick. Fantasy Forensic Podcast. What exactly is that?
It's a podcast I hooked up with two guys that I found actually on Reddit. They were posting. They were looking for some help. I responded to the post, and now I'm pretty much on there every day. Initially I was just interested in being on as like a guest, trying to dip my feet into the podcasting world, and it went well. I came back for a second show, and then here we are. It's pretty much like any other podcast.
Good deal.
Out there giving some fantasy information, trying to do our best.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Glad to hear it. All right, our next guest, also a writer for FantasyPros.com. He's a fairly new writer, Ryan Melosi. Is that how I say it?
Yep, you got it, man.
All right, good deal, man. How you doing tonight?
I am just great.
Good deal, good deal.
Guys?
So how long you been writing for Fantasy Pros?
Just about a month. I used to do some writing on some local sports things, but never really did much fantasy stuff until recently. I've always been playing it, but
good deal.
For writing wise, wrote something for Fantasy Sharks, and they weren't really. I don't want to bash anybody, I guess, but they weren't very receptive. And I know Bobby Sylvester, who hosts the podcast for Fantasy Pros. I know him. Went to high school with him, college roommates, and he sent it to Blaine, and Blaine liked what I did, so here we are. Good deal.
Good deal. All right, the last guy we got, he might as well just be my co-host. He comes on so often. Writes for GoingFor2.com. He also has his podcast that he co-hosts, the Fantasy Football 24/7 podcast. Mr. Ryan Cearfoss, how you doing tonight, man?
Good, man. Back-to-back episodes with you now.
Yep, definitely,
glad to be
man. Back. Yeah, good to have you on, man. Always good to have you on. All right, so I kind of went over a little bit of the premise. We've got some ranking discrepancies between the three of you. I'm going to set y'all up with a certain player. We're going to take two of you, and you're just basically going to debate it. Have a couple minutes to sort of prove your point on your player, and then I'll have a little bit of a counterpoint if it comes up, and we'll just kind of talk about them as a player and what we think of them overall. Y'all ready to do that?
For sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, and for the purpose of this podcast, we're going to call Ryan Melosi. We're calling by his last name, Melosi, since we got 2 Ryans on here, so there's no confusion. And I'm saying it right? Melosi, right?
That is correct.
All right, good deal. All right, so the first player I got up here is a player that's sort of all over the map as far as ranking. No one knows really where to put him. They all, pretty much consensus top 10 running back, but he hasn't played a single NFL game yet in his career. Saquon Barkley. Ryan was by far the lowest on Saquon Barkley, which I've kind of talked about him before with him. He's got him ranked at RB12, and then Jason was the highest on him. He has him at RB5. Jason, we'll start with you. Tell us why you like Saquon Barkley so much.
I actually just wrote an article for FF Today on Saquon Barkley and why I like him so much, so you guys can check that out. But I hated the pick when it was made from a real-life perspective. Don't think a running back should be drafted that high in the first round. But from a fantasy perspective, this could not be a better situation. He's walking onto a team that has no viable running backs, nothing. All the opportunity is there from him. And my biggest argument in favor of Saquon Barkley is his floor. Even though he's never played an NFL snap, he has an incredibly high floor. I think he's a lock for 350 touches. He could possibly push 400. You don't take a guy second overall if you don't plan to use him, regardless of whether I think the pick was good or not. I like to refer to something that I call the Melvin Gordon corollary, which is pretty much situation plus opportunity is greater than talent. I don't think Melvin Gordon is very good at football. But Melvin Gordon in 2017 had 1,105 rushing yards, 476 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns. That's pretty much Saquon Barkley's floor. If Saquon Barkley is just a mediocre prospect, that's what we're looking at. Probably somewhere around a mid to low RB1. But what if Saquon Barkley is this generational talent that we think he is? Imagine the possibilities. His ceiling is legitimately number 1 overall.
All right. Good stuff. All right, Ryan, go ahead and tell us why you don't like Saquon Barkley. You're like the lowest ranker, I think, of anybody I know that's ranked Saquon Barkley.
He has moved up to 11 since we last talked. Shady took a little dip for me. We won't get into him, though. I'm going to start. I think Barkley's great. I watched majority of his games. I live in Western Pennsylvania. Everybody knows Penn State fans. It's disgusting. And he is a hell of a football player. But there are a lot of questions there. I mean, there's the offensive line, which I know everyone says it's better, but it's still bad. Pro Football Focus has the entire center to right tackle listed as poor. Their highest person is a 75, which is Nate Soldier, which is average, and then they got a rookie. There's still question marks there. Evan Ingram can't block, so he has no help there. And I think in the passing game, he's going to do fine. He'll probably have 50, 60 receptions, but he's still competing for a lot of targets with a monster target hog or DJ there. Then there's Shepard and Ingram to compete with. I think the volume's the biggest question. I love what he's going to do. I think he's going to be a low-end RB1, floor RB2. And I'm going to bet on some of the guys who I know their offenses are built around them and have it. I mean, Fournette's going to be that guy. Cook's that guy. Freeman, Gordon, who you mentioned, who I completely agree on. I don't think he's a good football player. But he's in a perfect situation, and we've seen what they'll do with that. We've yet to see a running back in the Giants' offense do anything worthwhile for fantasy. I think he'll do fine. I think he'll do a little bit better than we saw McCaffrey last year. There's a lot of talent at the position. That's my biggest thing, is more what's out there comparatively this year.
All right, fair enough. Jason, you want to counter that at all?
I agree that there are a lot of very good running backs here. I actually think there are 14 legitimate running backs I feel comfortable with as my RB1, which is more than we've seen in previous years. But I feel like Saquon Barkley just has an upside. You mentioned Melvin Gordon as taking him over Barkley, but like I said, I think Melvin Gordon is legitimately Barkley's floor. I'm looking at the Giants' numbers. I know that their running backs have been bad, but again, that's because the running backs have been bad. Last year, the Giants ran the ball 394 times. How many of those are going to Barkley this year? Probably 300. They threw the ball to their running backs. I'm trying to look it up now. It was well over 120 times. What if we give, 60, 70 of those to Barkley? 139, thank you. So 139 targets to the running backs. And they rotated 3-4 guys there. We can consolidate most of that into Saquon Barkley. So if we're looking at 300 carries plus 80 to 90 targets potentially, And if we assume that he is a better player than guys like Melvin Gordon and Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette, I don't know how you can have him as low as 11.
The other thing with those guys that he doesn't have, I feel like their game scripts are going to go more towards running, being they have teams with better defenses outside of David Johnson and Zeke, who we know are going to get tons of volume year in, year out. All these guys are on good teams who I have above him, who I'd take there. And I think their lack of defense in New York, as well as lines that hurt him just enough to push him down for me.
All right. I think I have Barkley right dead smack in the middle of y'all at RB8. I think both of your points are solid. I've always kind of taken a hesitant approach of taking a rookie running back in the first round of a fantasy draft. I've seen too many that have missed. I mean, Melvin Gordon was one of them. I remember Monte Ball was another one that was a big first round pick that didn't do much. I don't think Saquon Barkley falls into that category, but I don't know if I'll own Saquon Barkley in my redraft leagues. Now, if we're talking dynasty, different story. But in redraft, I'm a little nervous. I can't quite give him the 5, but I'm not as low as Ryan is with the 11. So I got him right dead in the middle. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the next one here. We've got we're going to keep Jason on there. We're going to go to Ryan Melosi, and we're going to talk about Demaryius Thomas. Melosi has him as wide receiver 13, and Jason's really low on him at wide receiver 35. Melosi, we'll go to you first. What you got for Demaryius Thomas, and why you like him so much?
I've liked Demaryius Thomas basically since Peyton Manning's heydays. He's been the wide receiver 16 the last 2 seasons. He's had, Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch and a bunch of losers throwing him the ball. He's never seen under 140 targets. I'm not really sold on the running game in general in Denver. I grew up a Rams fan, had Rams season tickets forever. When they left, I hate them now, obviously. But, so I'm not really, I don't know. I've seen Case Keenum in person play multiple games. I don't know if he's actually good. But he's better than Trevor Siemian, or at the very least, he's Trevor Siemian. So I just don't really know how he's going to go down from his wide receiver 16 the last couple of seasons.
All right, fair enough. All right, Jason, why do you hate Demaryius Thomas?
Well, if we're going by PPR points per game, Demaryius was the wide receiver 16 in 2016, and he went down in 2017 to the wide receiver 24. He's trending in the wrong direction. He has 3 seasons with double-digit touchdowns, all with elite Peyton Manning. Once we got to 2015, when Peyton was done, and since then, touchdown counts 6, 5, and 5. I know touchdowns are not the best measure of a receiver because they're relatively unpredictable from year to year. But while Case Keenum is a massive upgrade over Trevor Siemian, that's more of an indictment on Siemian than it is praise for Keenum. A lot of quarterbacks would be a massive upgrade over Trevor Siemian. Since 2014, Demaryius's yardage and targets have dropped every year. Last year, failed to reach 1,000 yards. I really think the end is close for this guy. By 2020, he's gonna be done. He's gonna be out of the league. Not out of the league, but he won't be a relevant player anymore. He'll be like probably like what we think of Brandon Marshall this year. And he probably has one more year left, but as a low end wide receiver 3, he's not gonna go back up this year.
I don't know what 2020 has to do with 2018. We're talking redraft here, right? I mean,
oh no, I know. What I'm saying is that he's on the way down.
I guess, but I mean, he had his highest average depth of target last year that he's had since 2012. I mean, he's still running his routes. He's still making the catches. He just hasn't had anybody throwing to him. As you said, I know that you and I talked about TD rates with Julio Jones. Like you said, they're not predictive. So he's still 6'3". He's still pretty quick. He still can catch the ball in traffic. So, I mean, if he gets more targets in the end zone, I think that I looked earlier, I think he was like 70th or something in end zone targets, last year. So, I mean, especially full PPR, he just has so much volume that I don't really know that he's definitely not 35, but I don't really know how you could even put him out of wide receiver 2 range.
I mean, you're right about the contested catch rate. He was right up there, 7th in the league last year. But his catchable target rate 70%, 75th. So again, a good point in your favor. His catch rate is 59.3%. That's a problem. He had 10 drops last year. He doesn't separate anymore, ranked 62nd in the league in target separation. 91st QB rating when targeted. There's just a lot of problems with Demaryius. He's getting up there in age. This is a guy that I want to be out on a year early, if possible, just because I don't want to take him at potentially a mid-wide receiver 2 and then see him just fall off while he's on my team.
No, I could definitely understand the rather a year early than a year late. But like, who do you have in his range? I don't have your rankings. I didn't see him.
Demaryius' rule. My rankings are quite different than Norm, but I'll tell you some people I have right around him. Right around him, I've got Jarvis Landry, Amari Cooper, Marvin Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Man, these are all guys in the 30s? You are very contrary, and I like it. So, okay, that's fair. It's just, I don't know. I don't really see him dropping out of the wide receiver 2 range.
Yeah, I think once again, I fall right in the middle of y'all. I think I have him right in the 20, 21, 22 range. I do think the quarterback upgrade does help him. I think Case Keenum is an upgrade. Now, I don't know if he's the Case Keenum that we saw last year. I think that may have been just a one-off. But, yeah, I think Demaryius Thomas is a good, solid wide receiver 2. But I can see the potential of him, having that year where he just falls off. I mean, he has been trending in the wrong direction. So to Jason's point, I can see that happening. Depending on where I get him in drafts, might depend on whether I have him on my team or not. I could see the value if he falls a little bit. If people feel the way Jason does and he sits there for a while, I'll definitely take him. But he's not someone I'm going to target for sure. All right. The next one we got here on my list is rookie Rashad Penny. And I picked him on purpose because I know Ryan is not a huge fan. Ryan Cearfoss. He's talked about it multiple times, but he has him ranked at RB 28. And Ryan Melosi has him the highest, I believe, of everybody at RB 15. Cearfoss, we'll go to you first, man. Why do you hate Rashad Penny?
The hype's too much right now. What he came out from and what they're expecting out of him just doesn't make sense to me. And we've seen Seattle's track record drafting. At San Diego State, he dominated. But that's what they did. That small college. In the last 10 seasons, they've had 13 guys rush for over 1,000 yards. So they've had more 1,000-yard rushers than seasons. Their best defense they faced last year in their week schedule was the 33rd ranked run defense in the country in Boise State, where he had 53 yards off of 21 carries. So he didn't show up against the best competition. And even if that's enough, yes, he's big and fast, but his burst score with player profiler is low in the 31st percentile, which would be his vertical and explosion metrics, which is bad for running back. You need a guy who can explode, burst through the line, break tackles using that. That's far more important than just being fast off the block and running a nice 40 time. And then when you look at Seattle as a team, their offense is terrible outside of Russell Wilson. They're 31st in rush blocking, according to Football Outsiders. They lost their number 2 receiver. They lost their top tight end. They gave up the highest rush stuff percentage. So 30% of the time, their backs were hit behind the line and dropped for a loss. And the backfield's still crowded, even though these guys aren't first-round picks. There's still Chris Carson, J.D. McKissick, and C.J. Prowse there. Whether he was hurt or not, there's still pass catchers who are going to get involved. And they're not going to trust Penny on third down when he's been a terrible pass blocker throughout his career, even against small competition. I think the hype's too much, and that first-round pick was the worst in the NFL draft.
Wow, that's a statement right there. All right. Go ahead, Melosi.
I won't necessarily disagree with you on the first-round pick, but as Katz was saying earlier with Melvin Gordon, the opportunity's there. I don't really think that Pete Carroll is going to use a first-round pick, even if it is a late one on a running back, just to have him sit the bench. I understand that there's people back there that can catch the ball out of the backfield, and I know Penny's college stats for receiving are very, very mediocre. But Michael Salfino, who writes for 538 and Yahoo a lot, and he's one of my favorite Twitter follows, for fantasy football. He did some research. 73% of the value for a running back comes from first and second down. That's where the points come from. And 13.5 for the goal line. So I don't know. Pass catching is not really something that I'm going to knock somebody too much for after seeing all that research. And then, like you said, the offense outside of Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin kind of sucks, but I'm going to want a running back on a high-scoring offense more than, I don't know, the opportunity and the good offense relatively. I mean, they were 11th last season in points scored, but Russell Wilson's an MVP candidate every single year, so I like the opportunity there.
What about their defense with that falling off too? I mean, they're going to be in a lot more shootouts and be giving up a ton of points where they're not forced to run or not running the ball like they used to, because that's pretty much non-existent as well.
I mean, outside of Marshawn Lynch, they weren't really super run heavy to begin with, were they?
No, they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since then.
Right, but I mean, they had Thomas Rawls a couple years ago, who was real good, and I just don't think last year they came into the season with Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy's been washed up for years. I know that you don't really like the first-round pick, but like I said, I don't think that they draft a running back in the first round just to have him get touches taken away by Chris Carson. So I don't know. It's more just like Katz said earlier, the usage is a really big thing for me, and that's basically what I'm going to harp on a lot. The rest of the hour or however long we're on here. So guys I got behind him, like Alex Collins, Joe Mixon, some of those guys, they have just as many question marks for me. And Penny is probably good enough to really overcome that in a good offense for me.
All right. Hey, Ryan, we had a question while you were talking there. I was going to kind of pass it to you from the Facebook Live audience.
Okay.
Can you explain process versus results?
Which Ryan are you talking to? Me?
Yeah. Sorry, Ryan Cearfoss. They were asking how can you can explain process versus results for the viewers.
Okay. Let's say process versus results is I'm trusting what I'm seeing in a team and what I'm seeing in a player. Like, are they getting the carries like they said? 'Cause volume's huge. And these things match up, like with touchdown rates. Like Julio had a bad year last year because his touchdowns were lower comparatively, but he still got the yardage, and it's going to come back to its mean. So if the guy has something that doesn't match up because it's an odd or somebody playing over or under what we're expecting, that's the results. The process is how I get there, and I'm going to trust the numbers, the volume, and what's expected out of a player and a system that more than like a fluke. Gotcha.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I actually don't have my ranking for Rashad Penny for some reason. I didn't write it down, but I know that I'm around where Melosi is, right around that RB15 range. I don't hate him as much as Ryan does. I do think that the volume, I think I always say it in a lot of my articles, that opportunity trumps talent. Basically, if you're sitting on the bench, doesn't matter how talented you are, you're not going to get any fancy points. So having the opportunity, if he does get the work just by sheer volume alone, I think he can be fantasy viable. I'm not going to spend a high round pick on him in fantasy though, so I'll wait on him. And if there's a veteran running back there on the board when I pick and it's Penny or the veteran, I'm probably taking the veteran over the rookie. Again, dynasty, different story, but in redraft, I prefer the veteran with a little bit more of a track record. All right, next one we got on the board is C.J. Anderson, and we got Jason with him being the lowest at RB31, and Melosi with RB22. Not a huge gap, but I wanted to get Anderson in here because I had a big debate on Twitter about him and whether or not he would be involved in the offense as much as Stewart was in the past. So Jason, we'll start with you. You're the lowest on him. Explain why you don't like him as much.
I'm low on him. That's weird because I thought I was high on him. His ADP is outside the top 36. I've got him 31. I wanted to defend C.J. Anderson. But no, I can definitely disparage him here because ultimately he's a replacement level player. He's like Melvin Gordon. He's fine. You give him a hole, he'll run through it. But he's not doing anything special. He's not a difference maker when on the field. But he is better than Jonathan Stewart at this point in Stewart's career. So last year, Stewart, about 700 yards, a little over 200 touches. Look for the same from C.J. Anderson. He could possibly do a little more with it, maybe 200 to 220 touches, 800 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. He's a bye-week replacement type guy. And he had one good stretch at the end of 2014, and people still think he's good because of that. He's just not good. He's just fine.
Good point. All right. Melosi, you got him the highest at RB22. Why do you like him so much?
Yeah, I know we said that about the replacement players last night, Katz, about how we're kind of in agreement where pretty much all running backs are probably replacement level at a certain point. I mean, obviously there's some that are more talented, but a lot of it's system. But like I said, it's going to be a common theme for me with the opportunity. And like you said, he's probably looking at 220, 230 touches. I don't think the Panthers' offense is going to be all that bad. I cited the first and second down numbers for Penny, so I'll go back to those, but 73% of the value is on first and second down and 13.5 on the goal line. And I know the goal line stuff is, everyone has this idea that Cam Newton is, the goal line back in Carolina, but he had 5 rushes inside the 5, whereas Jonathan Stewart last year had 16. So I'm just not really going to buy the whole Cam Newton thing. I know they want to try to keep him healthy and not take so many hits. Like you said, that 2014 stretch, I was burnt on C.J. Anderson in the earlier rounds too. But you can get him dirt cheap now. And if anything were to happen to McCaffrey, I mean, who else do they have back there? The coach has had a lot of talk about McCaffrey up to 200 rushes, which is just BS for me. But I don't know. I just think that Anderson has a 93 ADP, and he's going to get the goal line work. He's going to get the first and second down work. He's going to get a lot of touches. He's not somebody I'm going to be happy with if he's my, RB2 or flex, but if for 0 RB or something, he's one of my main targets later in the draft.
Fair enough. Yeah, I got C.J. Anderson a little bit lower too. I think maybe even lower than Jason has him. But your point to Jonathan Stewart last year getting 16 carries inside the red zone. As a McCaffrey owner last year, it was killing me to see him get those carries down there. And if Anderson comes in, this is my dynasty league, if Anderson comes in and gets those same kind of carries and converts them into touchdowns, that's the thing with Jonathan Stewart, is he didn't convert many of them into touchdowns. I want to say he may only had 2 on the season. They both came in the same game, I believe. But yeah, I think Anderson, if he can convert those touchdowns there, he might be a little bit higher ranked, but I think he's very touchdown dependent. All right. The next one we got here, we're going to go with Cearfoss and Jason. This is a guy that's sort of near me where I'm at. I live in Washington, D.C. He's sort of all over the map. You talk to anybody, they don't know where to rank this guy. Jordan Reed. Cearfoss, you got him at tight end 24. Jason, you got him at tight end 10. I'm going to go with you first, Jason. Why do you like Jordan Reed so much?
I don't like Jordan Reed. He doesn't play football. It's the most important thing, play football. But ultimately, when you get past your top few tight ends, the top 4, 5, 6, if you want to throw Greg Olsen in there and Delaney Walker maybe, you're looking for upside later on. And when I'm looking I'm looking in the 8th round, and I've got a guy who was previously a 3rd, 4th round pick who's shown that he can be the best tight end in football from a fantasy perspective. He did it for 2 straight years. Between in 2015 and 2016, Jordan Reed on a per game basis outscored Rob Gronkowski. So we know what his upside is. In the 8th round, where Jordan Reed's going, maybe even the 9th, I'll take a shot on the upside, and if he ends up getting hurt, I'll drop him. It's not a big deal. I see no reason just to completely ignore him when you know what he can do if he actually can play 12 to 14 games.
Good point. Ryan, what's your beef with Jordan Reed?
I mean, simple. I'm just going to read down his injury history for you. Hamstring sprain, rib contusion, shoulder strain, concussion, thumb contusion, ankle sprain, shoulder contusion, concussion, quadricep sprain, and there's about 8 more, but including 2 more concussions I don't want to get into. The best thing you can do is be on the field. I mean, you can't get fancy points if you're on the bench. And in the 8th round, I'm still trying to fill out a lineup. I'd rather grab another running back or receiver and just stream tight end later on than have to worry about, is this guy his brittle bone's going to break. He's a 236-pound tight end, so he's undersized, which is possibly somewhat causes the injuries. And if you're beat up that much, I don't care how talented you are, it's going to wear you down, and I'm out before the opportunity is there to get burnt by it.
Once we get to the 8th round, we're looking at guys that we're just taking shots on at that point. Our ability to select players that are going to hit in the 8th round, 9th round, 10th round, it's about the same as it is in the 11th and 12th round. They're pretty much all dart throws. So,
I agree.
And Jordan Reed's got more upside than anyone else you're going to find that late.
So I'd rather take a dart throw on a young guy or a receiver, running back who's going to fill in at some point than a tight end who you can strain fairly easily, being the position is, like you said, trash outside of top, like maybe 8 if you're lucky.
All right, fair enough, guys. Jordan Reed, I think I have him a little bit higher than Ryan does. I think I got him in the 15-16 range, just basically baking in that injury history and the fact that I don't think he finishes the season yet again. The one thing that I will say in his favor is he's going from a quarterback that loved tight ends to a quarterback that loved tight ends. So I think with Alex Smith there, he's not going to lose anything as far as targets as long as he's on the field. So I think if he can stay healthy, if there's any chance that he can stay healthy on the season, I think he can finish as even at the top 3 tight end if he can stay healthy. That's the caveat, though, is staying healthy, which he hasn't been able to do his entire career. So I kind of baked in that to his ranking, and I have that around 15 or 16. The next guy we got on here is DeVante Parker, of course, the Dolphins receiver, basically sort of projected each year to be the breakout, and we haven't quite seen it yet. He had a better year last year than he had in the past, but still not what we expect him to have. So the 2 guys we got here are going to be Ryan, who has him at 26, and Jason's got him at 53. We're going to go with Ryan first. Ryan Melosi, you love DeVante Parker. What's up with Parker? Why do you like him so much?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily I love DeVante Parker. Like I said before, we're going to just keep hitting on this opportunity stuff, and Jarvis Landry being gone, 161 targets opened up. Jay Cutler's gone. Ryan Tannehill's back. Jay Cutler just, honestly, I think he just wanted a paycheck, which can't blame him. But I don't know. He's a former first rounder. Like I said, his depth of target is way up there. He gets so many air yards for his actual targets. He's right up there with like even DeAndre Hopkins, Doug Baldwin, T.Y. Hilton. So I mean, he's not running these little dinker routes. So I don't know. I just think that we're kind of drafting him. What is his ADP? Like 91 right now? 91. And I think we're just kind of drafting him at his floor where he has some pretty decently high upside with all the volume that can be there.
All right, fair enough. Jason, what you got? Why do you hate DeVante Parker?
Because I'm just fed up. The dude sucks at football, plain and simple. He's just not good. I understand. His athleticism is there. I mean, his best comparable player on playerprofile.com is AJ Green, and I agree. I saw it out of college. I like DeVante Parker. The guy's an athlete, no doubt about it. But now we're 3 years into his career. Where is it? Every year. This is the year with DeVante Parker. This is the year. When? How many times are we going to say this is the year before we say, hey, how about he shows us something before we draft him as a wide receiver 3, which he's not. He has 139 receptions and 8 touchdowns in 43 career games. He absolutely cannot separate. He was 98 in target separation last year. 98th! And you want to talk about available targets? Yeah. Okay, fine. Plenty of available targets. 161. Why are they going to DeVante Parker? They signed Danny Amendola. They paid Albert Wilson. It's clear what they're trying to do with the offense. Jarvis Landry was an underneath slot guy, and they replaced him with 2 underneath slot guys. The majority of Jarvis Landry's targets are going to Albert Wilson and Danny Amendola. So, DeVante Parker, show me something. I'm not taking you until you do.
Pretty passionate there.
I mean, I get it. I mean, DeVante Parker's burned pretty much everyone, but like I got him around like Devin Funchess and Pierre Garçon and Kelvin Benjamin and Emmanuel Sanders. Like, I get that those guys are probably going to be more consistent than Parker, but you were just talking about upside for Jordan Reed in the 8th round. Where's the upside in those guys? So, I mean, Danny Amendola, like I said, I was a Rams fan. I saw him get banged up every other play. Albert Wilson, whatever. I get that DeVante Parker hasn't really done anything and burnt us, but I'm not really going to hold grudges in fantasy football because I'm more interested in the opportunity that people get. So I'm not going to be mad that I wasted a 6th-round pick or whatever on him last year, even though I kind of am mad about it. So, I don't know. Like I said, I'm more all about the opportunity for some of these guys, and Ryan Tannehill's an upgrade to Cutler, so.
It's not saying much.
Well, I know, and the same thing with Trevor Siemian earlier. They're both pretty weak, but I don't know. There's so many targets out there that I have to think that more go to DeVante Parker, and I'm not really going to get his upside at this point, so I'll go for it.
Just don't poo-poo Albert Wilson here. This guy's an athlete, 98th percentile college dominator. He was once a featured receiver at Georgia State. I know it's a small school, but we just had the small schools a little too much. Contested catch. He's a contested catch monster. 4th in the league last year. 17th in yards per target. There's upside in Albert Wilson. I think there's more upside in Albert Wilson than there is in DeVante Parker.
Well, are you looking at him like he's like a Kenny Stills from last year with that kind of target range?
I like Kenny Stills more than DeVante Parker, too.
Well, that's fine. Kenny Stills had a ton of targets last year, too, right?
I got him at 25.
25?
Kenny Stills.
Wow.
That's
all right.
We're not getting that one tonight. Though.
Yeah.
Still Ryan Tannehill at quarterback.
Someone's got to catch it, and somebody got paid.
Fair enough. All right, guys, let's move on to let's go ahead and skip down to the last one here. We're running out of time for the first half here. We're going to go down to Michael Gallup, wide receiver rookie, Ryan Melosi, and Jason once again. Ryan Melosi, you've got him at wide receiver 48. Jason, you've got him at 61. We'll start with you this time, Melosi. What's your love for Gallup there at 48?
Yeah, I said this earlier that I kind of wish I didn't have him that high. Who's their wide? I don't know. Like I said, we're just going to keep banging this opportunity point. Or who's their wide receivers? They have Terrence Williams and Cole. Was it Cole Beasley still there?
Yep.
Alan Hearns.
And Alan Hearns. Alan Hearns had a good year in 2014, I think, 15 maybe. I'm not going to argue Michael Gallup, really. I wish I didn't have him that high, but I know Katz he's a Cowboys fan, so he wanted to talk about Michael Gallup too.
All right, Katz, go ahead. Bring us to the commercial break.
I love Michael Gallup. He's a future wide receiver. He's the Cowboys' future wide receiver 1. He's got wide receiver 2 upside in fantasy. But I'm going to tell you why Michael Gallup has no fantasy value this year, at least early on, and it has nothing to do with his talent. It has to do with the completely incompetent coaching staff led by Jason Garrett on the Dallas Cowboys. Have any of you watched All or Nothing on Amazon?
I have not
yet.
Well, you need to. It's embarrassing. There's a moment in there, which is I'm going to give you this as a microcosm for the Dallas Cowboys. This is what they do. Jason Garrett's leading a meeting, I think, after a loss. And he opens up a meeting and he says, "How we doing, boys?" Which apparently is something he's required to do. Jerry Jones calls in because he's not there. And his most pressing need is to ask Jason Garrett if he asked the room, "How we doing, boys?" That's the type of organization we're talking about. That's what their priorities are. Alan Hearns is fine as a number 2. Gallup should be the wide receiver 1. Terrence Williams stinks. Cole Beasley is a worse version of Ryan Switzer, who's traded to Oakland for reasons I can't begin to fathom. But simply put, Cowboys are going to put Gallup on the field, maybe in 4 wide receiver sets, just because they're terrible at running a team. This is just an incompetent team. They're bad. Gallup should play. I can definitely see a scenario where he has a Juju Smith-Schuster type breakout, where potentially maybe week 8 or 9, they finally thrust him into the lineup either via injury or because they realize that he's better than everything else they have. But I cannot trust this team to give him the opportunity that I think he already deserves.
All right. Pretty passionate there for your last 2 guys there, Jason. I like it. Like it.
A little overzealous.
No, it's good, man. I like it. It's good. It's good for the podcast. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break here. When we come back, we'll do a little bit of roundtable. Y'all want to hang out a little bit?
Yep, sure.
3 shows, 1 podcast. The Talk Loud Radio podcast combines sports, nerds, and pop culture with the Pay Me No Mind Show. Just down-to-earth sports and entertainment. The Clash of the Nerds Let's Podcast Show. The latest movies and video games with a dash of comedy. And the Armchair Fantasy Show. 8. Sleep, Fantasy Sports. Find Talk Loud Radio on all the major podcast services like iTunes and Stitcher at talkloudradio.com and streaming on the Going for 2 app for iOS and Android. Talk Loud Radio, where sports, nerds, and pop culture collide.
Do you need advice for your fantasy football team? How about your DraftKings or FanDuel lineup? Going42.com has you covered. Going42.com has exclusive content from some of the best fantasy writers in the industry, whose credentials include Bleacher Report, Fantasy Pros, and Fantasy Life. From advice columns to player ranks, Going42.com has it all. Sign up for our newsletter to have all of our content sent to your inbox. Start winning today. Visit Going42.com, because no one remembers the extra point.
Step into a world where there's no one left but the very best. Your MC can tell.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are here tonight again with Jason Katz of pretty much everywhere, Fantasy Pros, FF Today, Roto Baller, his podcast, Fantasy Forensics. Of course, Ryan Cearfoss of GoingFor2.com, Fantasy Football 24/7 podcast, and Ryan Melosi of Fantasy Pros as well. We just did our debates. Now we're going to do some roundtable here. I'm going to give you all a player that's basically sort of controversial in rankings throughout the industry. And we're just going to go around the table here and just talk about him and what we think about him. And the first one we got here is probably maybe the most controversial guy, not just because of what he does on the field, what he does off the field as well. And that's Josh Gordon, receiver from the Cleveland Browns. Jason, we'll go to you first, too. What's your thoughts on Josh Gordon?
And Josh Gordon actually won me a title in 2013. So I've got nothing but love for Josh Gordon. His ceiling, we've seen it. It's the overall wide receiver 1. His floor is he literally doesn't play football. The widest range of outcomes for any player in fantasy. In the past 5 years, he's played 10 out of a possible 64 games. We can't discount that. I understand that we all saw the picture of him in OTAs with the bulging bicep. The guy is completely ripped. He's in fantastic shape. Would not shock me if he came back and was a wide receiver 1. Wouldn't shock me if he had a relapse. It's hard for me to spend a 3rd-round pick on a guy that has so many concerns. We're clinging to this one elite season back from 2013. I know it was incredible, otherworldly, but it's still just one season. It was 5 years ago. I like Josh Gordon. Not willing to gamble in round 3.
All right, fair enough. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Josh Gordon? Ryan Cearfoss.
I think his ADP is absolutely ludicrous. Since the last time he's had a 1,000-yard season, it's happened 89 times in the NFL. There's been 89 times somebody's had a 1,000-yard season since he's done anything worthwhile. And that includes John Brown, Alan Hearns, and Kenny Britt.
Kenny Britt. Gotta love Kenny Britt.
Yeah, he caught 41% of the passes thrown to him last year. I know his quarterback sucked, and that's improved this year, but he's still competing with a target hog and Jarvis Landry. He's competing with David Njoku. Duke Johnson's still there to catch passes. If you talk about trusting the process, don't believe a picture on Twitter. Believe what the numbers say.
All right, good stuff. Melosi, what do you got for Josh Gordon? You liking him or no?
I don't have any contrarian views here. Sorry, guys. I'm with Katz, where I like the player. I hate the ADP. I'm with Ryan with all the other targets there. He even forgot Corey Coleman, who's been on pace for over 100 targets each year he's played. I know he's had some injury problems, but he was a first-round pick. Gordon was on pace for 134 targets last year, if you prorate it to 16 games. But I don't know. I'm with you guys where I like the player. I'm never going to pay his ADP, especially with Tyrod Taylor. He's never thrown over, I think, 470 attempts in a year. So I don't know where all this volume's coming from with Joku and Landry and Gordon and Coleman and Duke Johnson. Cleveland is a team I'm kind of staying away from in general because I just have no idea how it's going to play out.
Do you know who he was competing with Cardinals with last year? The last top 3 receivers outside of him, off the top of your head?
In Cleveland?
Yeah.
I looked it up. I just did a bunch of target analysis, but I can't remember at this point.
It was like Rashard Higgins, Ricardo Lewis, and Kenny Brett. It's so bad. Dude,
nice. All right,
so I think we're all in agreement probably, right?
Pretty much consensus there that we're not loving Josh Gordon's ADP. We do like him if you can get him in late rounds, but I don't see that happening. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 2. I actually own him in my Dynasty League, and luckily I'm stacked at receiver, and he's my flex position on a bad week. So I kind of like having him there. I've thought about selling high on him, but I'm going to hold on to him and see what he does this year, and maybe selling high on him if he gets a few good games to start the season. All right, next guy I got on here is he plays for my team, so I want to get one of my guys on here to get your thoughts on him. And he got signed this year to a huge contract. Of course, we're talking about running back Jerick McKinnon. This time we'll go to you, Cearfoss. What you got for Jerick McKinnon?
My opinion's slightly starting to go up on him. I mean, he's a talented guy. He was a spark freak, but, I mean, the opportunity's there. Breed is not that guy. I don't know. I know you probably watched a lot more 49ers than I did, but he's not really that much competition, and I'll take the pass-catching running back there. And then the third round, it's mid to third round, late third round, I have no problem taking where he's at.
I agree with you on that one. Melosi, what do you got for McKinnon?
I've been going down on him more. I don't know. I waffle on this guy all the time. Mentioned I was a Rams fan. I switched to the Falcons. I got a buddy that lives in Atlanta, so we picked the Falcons up. But Kyle Shanahan's a miracle worker with his RB1s. Freeman came out of nowhere, and I think his worst finish was RB8 or something when Shanahan was there. Just McKinnon's never really done much when he's been given a full-time role, but I don't know. If it comes to the third round, he's one of those guys where I'm going to look at him for a long time, and if the clock's ticking down and I don't know what to do, I might take him. So I don't know. He's okay. I like the situation, like Ryan said a lot, and I know I talked about the situation a lot earlier, but Kyle Shanahan, he's a great coach. So I like McKinnon some days and I don't like him others. So I know that's not a real answer, but that's about what I got.
All right, good stuff. Jason, what you got for McKinnon?
First of all, where are you guys looking at ADPs? Jerick McKinnon's a mid-second round pick. So you're not getting him third round. And I'll gladly take him in the second round. I've always believed in the talent. He's never gotten a fair shake. Even when he had Minnesota, we thought he was the lead back when AP went down those years, but they just put Van Astian on the field. Maybe they didn't like McKinnon's pass blocking. I don't know, but the guy's just super athlete. He's has an incredible upside. Kyle Shanahan is going to treat McKinnon like he treated DeVante Freeman. As Cearfoss mentioned, Matt Breida is not good. If anyone thinks he's going to be a satellite back, he's not. 58.3% catch rate last season. Efficiency metrics mostly outside the top 45. Breida's not good. And then who are the other two guys? Jeremy McNichols. Did you guys watch Hard Knocks last year?
Where he got cut?
Yes.
Yeah, he not good. And then Joe Williams, I believe, is the single worst running back on an NFL roster right now.
Wow. Big statement there.
Give me all to McKinnon.
All right, fair enough. I will disagree with you on Joe Williams. I don't think he's the worst running back. I actually think he could take over the number 2 spot from Breida. As long as he can get his head on straight and get the playbook down. That was his issue last year, is he had issues with the playbook, issues with fumbling. But I watched that preseason game last year. I know it's preseason, and I know you can't really put a lot of stock in it, but he played against the Chiefs. And if you watch the 3 running backs, Carlos Hyde, Breida, and Joe Williams was the more explosive back out of the 3. He just jumped off the page there. I got a friend who's a Chiefs fan, and he was kind of worried about it too because he was just breaking off big run after big run. And then, of course, he gets shut down after that and doesn't play a single snap in the regular season. So if he can get his head on straight, if he can get the playbook down, if he can stop fumbling. I know it's a bunch of ifs. I do think that he can take over for Breida. Going back to McKinnon, I'm with the consensus here. I think McKinnon, second round, third round, whatever. I think I like him there. I think Shanahan's shown a history of creating running back sometimes out of nowhere. I mean, who saw Alfred Morris as a top running back? You know, he was here in Washington, and he made Alfred Morris a running back one for his years here. He also was in Cleveland for a year, and I know he didn't have an RB1, but he had 3 guys that combined for over 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns. I think it was Terrence West, Isaiah Crowell, and Ben Tate. So I know he can create the running backs out of nothing, and McKinnon's probably one of the better athletes he's had on his team. So I think McKinnon's good for there as a second and third round pick. I like it a lot.
ADP's 25th overall fantasy pros, by the way.
So he's
I would use Fantasy Football Calculator for that.
a little bit more realistic, you think?
Yeah, I love Fantasy Pros. It's a great site, and the simulator is awesome, but the ADPs are just completely out of whack.
Fair enough. All right, the next guy I got on my list is a guy that I am just going to go ahead and say it right now. I do not like him where he's being drafted. I do not like him at all. Actually, at one point in the season, I think I had him ranked as an RB4 as a flex position. I've moved him up since then just because of all the hype around him. But that's Joe Mixon. So, Melosi, we'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on Joe Mixon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I have Joe Mixon at 18, and that's more just some potential more than anything. His consensus ranking 16, so I'm a little down on him. His efficiency metrics kind of sucked last year, but he did show some explosiveness, especially out of the backfield. But they have Gio Bernard there. The line sucks. Marvin Lewis doesn't know what he's doing, I don't think. I don't know how that guy's still a coach, but I would think at a certain point even he has to see that Mixon's his best running back talent. But who really knows? So I'm kind of out on Mixon. I'm probably not going to draft him where I would need to get him on my team.
Fair enough. All right, Jason, what are your thoughts on Mixon?
In the third round, I've come to the conclusion that I'm never getting Tyreek Hill, so I want Joe Mixon everywhere I can get him. All in on Joe Mixon. This guy's going to be a first-round pick in 2019 drafts. I see a young Le'Veon Bell. That's what I see.
Wow.
The patience, the explosiveness, the vision, it's all there. The Bengals, I know, their offensive line was really bad last year. 1.31 yards before contact, 10th worst in the league. They traded for Cordy Glenn. They drafted Billy Price. They've upgraded the O-line. And this offense is due for a ton of positive regression. They were just so bad last year. They ran the fewest number of total offensive plays in the entire Marvin Lewis era. I think I saw this on RotoWorld. I don't remember who the writer was, but it was a great article. It was something like it was about 10 quarters worth of fewer plays than like league average. It's just if you just put that much more volume out there, even that'll propel Mixon to at least an RB2 type performance. And I think he's going to be involved in pass catching. Gio Bernard, yes, he's the satellite back. He's a great pass catcher. But this is going to be, I think we're looking at about a 60 to 65% opportunity share for Joe Mixon this year. He's got RB1 potential. I am all in on Mixon.
All right. Cearfoss, what you got?
I love Joe Mixon. I'm a huge Joe Mixon truther. I actually put out an article a few months back about him. And what you said about the time per drive and possessions, they're 32nd in the league in plays ran. They were 32nd in average time of drive. They're 26 points per game, 32nd in total yards, and 31st in rushing yards. They improved their offensive line. He's a pass-catching back. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. If he wouldn't have gotten in trouble in college, he would have been drafted in the first round, maybe right behind Fournette.
I think he would have gone ahead of Fournette. If he didn't have the off-field trouble.
I don't argue with you there at all. And then last year when they switched to Bill Lazor and completely changed their offense, his carries took a jump, and he averaged 17 touches a game with no practice and no camp in that offense. I think all the signs are there, especially with new offensive linemen, for him to have a bounce-back season. And they didn't have Eifert last year. Boyd and John Ross, who are all coming back off of injuries, so that opens things up for him even better.
All right, good stuff. Y'all are going to convince me to draft Joe Mixon because I don't think I've owned him in any single league yet. All right, the next guy I got on here is near and dear to my heart. I actually have him in my dynasty team, hoping to have a big season out of him. He disappointed a little bit last year. Wide receiver Mike Evans. Jason, we'll go to you first. Your thoughts on Mike Evans?
I don't really have a strong take either way in Mike Evans. His career high in catch percentage is 55.7, so he's inefficient and relies on volume. Not something that I really want to spend a high pick on, but I don't really have to spend that second-round pick on anymore. You can kind of get him early third round now. I don't hate him. We saw his floor last year, and it was pretty much mid-wide receiver 2. So even if he has a down year, he's not going to kill you, but way too many bust games in 2017. Just a single 100-yard performance. I'll take him at the right spot. If he falls to like the mid-third round, yeah, I'm fine with that. But if I'm picking at the top, late second, early third, I'll probably pass on him for somebody else.
All right, fair enough. Cearfoss, what you got for Mike Evans?
Mike Evans is a guy who we were talking about, again, going back to that trust in the process. His volume's there. I like guys with volume. He was 8th in targets per game last year. He averaged 9.1 targets a game. And, yes, he had a bad season, but Winston was injured multiple games. He either played hurt or missed. And he had to deal with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback multiple times. And they didn't have a running back there at all. They had Charles Sims and Peyton Barber. I think this year he bounces back, and I trust that volume. I made a huge trade for him recently in my dynasty. He's young, he's talented, and he's a red zone monster.
All right, good stuff. Melosi, what do you got for Mike Evans?
So I was okay with taking him at his ADP earlier in the offseason. And once the Winston suspension hit, he took kind of a hit. And not to bash one of Ryan's points over there, but he's actually been better with Winston off the field than with him on the field, which is just mind-blowing to me. RotoViz has the Game Splits app, which is one of my favorite tools, fantasy football tools online. And I couldn't believe it when I heard it, went and looked for myself, and yeah, he puts up better numbers with Ryan Fitzpatrick, whoever the backup quarterback is. But yeah, I like him now that he's dropped. I have him a little worse ranking-wise. I have him as my wide receiver 10, but if he falls into that third round, I don't know what his ADP is right now. But if he falls in there, his air yards are there. He's a touchdown machine. I know he only had, I think, 5 last year, but we've talked about that a few times where they're not very predictive. So I expect some big regression that way, and I kind of like him where he's at. So I'm buying him.
All right, good stuff. Jason, you got something?
Yeah, the reason that he's better with Ryan Fitzpatrick is because Ryan Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston.
Hot take. All right, good stuff, guys. All right, we got to speed this along a little bit. We do some quick hitters here. Derick Henry, Jason, quick hitter on Derick Henry. Like him or love him? I mean, like him or hate him?
I hate him. Want no part of him. He's a 2-down back. Doesn't catch passes. Deion Lewis is there. He can catch passes. He's a satellite back that can also run between the tackles. Too scary. When they're trailing, it'll be Deion Lewis out there. We know that's going to happen. When they're leading, probably Henry, but it also could be Deion Lewis. I'll take Lewis at the cheaper cost.
All right, fair enough. Cearfoss, Derick Henry, what do you think of him?
Agree with him. I'll be quick on this one since they're quick hitters. No difference. He's overrated.
All right. Melosi, what do you think of Derick Henry?
If they were sold on Derick Henry, they're not signing Deion Lewis, so why am I sold on Derick Henry is my point.
Good point. All right, Jason, you want to talk about him a little bit. Tyreek Hill, what you think of him?
Giving me back-to-back openers here, but Tyreek Hill's my boy. Last year, I got into so many debates on Twitter, on Reddit. I said he was a wide receiver 1, and he was going outside the top 20, and I was getting downvotes and hated, and sure enough, average points per game last year, wide receiver 6. This year, I've got him ranked as my wide receiver 4.
Wow.
Yeah. Wide receiver 4. I'm telling you, if I looked at Tyreek Hill and Julio Jones, I'm taking Tyreek Hill.
Wow.
Last year, 105 targets in 15 games. Chiefs attempted 540 passes. I'm not worried about Watkins stealing targets from Tyreek. Talented players command targets, and Tyreek Hill is a super talent. Watkins can be fine and still be this player everyone thinks he is without touching Tyreek Hill's targets. I don't understand why they would bring up what would their impetus be for taking targets away from their most explosive playmaker. It doesn't make sense. There's there's this talk that Tyreek Hill's inconsistent. Well, in FF Today's consistency rankings, Tyreek Hill was top 10, ahead of belief consistency guys like Keenan Allen and Julio Jones. Mahomes is a better fit for Tyreek Hill. I know the talk is going to be there about Alex Smith and his great deep ball completion percentage, but that was a product of Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill could do the same thing for Mahomes. I think he's a one-of-a-kind player that can consistently produce elite numbers with efficiency. He has legitimate overall wide receiver one upside if he ever saw the volume. I want Tyreek Hill everywhere.
All right, good stuff. Melosi, what do you think of Tyreek Hill?
Me and Jason did a 3,000 word back and forth for Fantasy Pros a few weeks ago about Julio Jones, and it turned into basically Julio Jones versus Tyreek Hill. No, thank you for Tyreek Hill unless it's a best ball draft. I just sniped him in front of Katz earlier today and won, actually. So
One pick.
I saw him right behind me. I didn't really know who to take, so I was like, well, I don't want Katz to have him again. So I wasn't going to let him have it. But Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 6, you're drafting him at his absolute ceiling for me. His last 13 touchdowns have come from 30 yards out. I don't know how that is going to be repeatable. I'm just not going to pay the premium to hope that he can keep scoring these ultra long touchdowns.
All right, good stuff. Cearfoss.
I was completely thrown off by his ranking him. I have him at like receiver 19 right now, and I thought that was fair just because I don't know what that new offense is going to be looking like with Pat Mahomes there, who I love Pat Mahomes, but it's still going to be a big change. And Watkins got paid like he's going to get targets. I think Hill will do great. I have him as a 1,000-yard receiver and 6 touchdowns, but I don't trust it as much with a young quarterback, another big-time receiver, and I don't know if Mahomes is going to gravitate towards the speed guy or if he's going to feel more comfortable going to that bigger target in Watkins or just powder Kelsey with targets. I have no idea what to expect, so I'm going to proceed on the side of caution just a little bit. If he's there at the right price, I'm definitely going to snag him. Yeah. And I'll probably snag him over a lot of the guys I have above him because I believe in the upside.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, Ryan. I think it's more of a trust factor. It's more of the uncertainty of, new quarterback. There's a new weapon on the team. They do want to run the ball there in Kansas City. They got, the leading rusher in the league last year in Hunt, so they're going to run the ball. I don't know if he can score those many touchdowns from as far out as he did, like Melosi said. I'm not as high on him as Katz for sure. Let's just say that.
Well, one of the things that I baked into it is my projection of Pat Mahomes, and I think Mahomes is a future top 5 quarterback in this league. And I think it's fair, as our jobs here as fantasy analysts is we're predicting the future. That's what we're doing. And part of my prediction is that I like Pat Mahomes, and I believe he's going to mesh very well with Tyreek. I think the Kansas City offense is going to be more pass-heavy because of Mahomes' skill set. And bringing in Watkins, I think that's the direction they're going in. And that's all baked into my projection of Tyreek Hill.
Right. I will say Mahomes was my number 1 quarterback last year coming into the rookie season.
Okay, fair enough.
For dynasty purposes,
yep. Yeah, that would be a bold statement if he had his quarterback number 1 coming into last season.
No, I'm talking my dynasty rookie number 1.
Right, I got you. All right, let's go with a quick hitter on Evan Ingram, who had, I think, the best rookie season for a tight end ever, even better than Gronkowski. Can he repeat in this offense? We'll go with you, Cearfoss, first.
I think it'll be fine. I have him as my tight end 5. He's going to go in that 5 to 7 range. I'm right behind Greg Olsen. OBJ is going to take away targets, so there's going to be a dip in production. There's no getting around it. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He's my number 2 receiver, and I think that's going to take away from Ingram. Shepard's still a good threat as well. So targets may go down just a little bit. I don't see that huge market share, but I think I'll take him, and just because tight end's bad, he can produce.
All right, good stuff. Katz, what do you think of Ingram?
I've got him up at my tight end 3. I actually have him ahead. I just recently moved him ahead of Zach Ertz.
Wow.
I'm far less concerned about the drop in targets. And I do agree he will see a drop in targets with a healthy Beckham, but he's got to have an increase in efficiency. I mean, the guy dropped, 13 passes last season? But he was still 16th contested catch rate amongst tight ends. So he can He's been working really hard in the offseason. We've seen him practicing with Davis Webb. He's committed. He's super athletic. Every one of his measurables is like 86th percentile or higher. He ran a 4.240, which is absolutely incredible. He's a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. He's a perennial future top 5 tight end. It may not happen this year, but that upside, huge mismatch for linebackers. I'll take the chance on Evan Ingram.
All right. Melosi, thoughts on Evan Ingram?
I'm with Ryan. I got him as my tight end 5, and I'm also with Katz that he's basically a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end. He is insane. But I think he's going to get his targets from more of the Sterling Shepard area than, I don't know. I don't have a problem with OBJ coming back because I think it's just going to help Ingram. The 4.4 240 is just insane for a guy that size. Like, that's scary fast.
Yes.
But I'm in on him. So he's their number 2. I don't agree with Ryan that Sterling Shepard's very good. I think he's more of just a guy as the second receiver. So I think we're going to keep seeing him with a decent target share, and I think that he'll be a very serviceable tight end.
There's a running back who both you guys loved very much that is going to take away targets as well.
I was wondering why no one brought him up. I was like, they got Barkley now.
Well, they were already
he's
above average last year, and
he's not quite Shane Vereen, but
well, they had 23% of the targets for the Giants last year went to the running backs. I mean, the league average was 21, so how much higher do you really expect Saquon Barkley to get? So I don't really think they're going to come that much down, or
what about
come down that much.
What about not passing as much in the red zone and giving the ball to Barkley more often?
That's a very good point, but I don't really have an answer for that.
All right, because that was my argument is, last year Ingram had a lot of touchdowns because in the red zone he's, this big guy. Then down in the red zone he's their target. OBJ wasn't there for most of the year, so, I mean, Barkley's there now. He could run the ball. Maybe they hand the ball off more, and those targets just aren't there. They aren't even targets. They're just handoffs. So I still like him. I think I have him as my tight end 6 or 7. I just don't think he's going to be, because I think I wrote in one of my articles, Gronkowski had the best rookie season for a tight end and then followed that up with the best season ever for a tight end. I don't see Ingram doing that. I think he'll be on par with last year's numbers, if not just a little bit lower, but I still think he's a good tight end and pretty much agree with where he's being drafted as well. All right, quick hitter on Andrew Luck. We're worried about his injury. Jason, we'll go to you.
Yeah, we're worried about his injury. When healthy, we know he's a top 5 quarterback. If you told me that he was going to play 16 games this year and be completely healthy, I would take him as a top 5 well, I would never take a quarterback that high, but I would have him ranked as a top 5 quarterback. As more positive news about his shoulder comes out, his ADP is going to rise. It really depends how high it gets. Right now, I'm happy to take a chance on him because the opportunity cost isn't there. I think he's going like the 10th or 11th round. Sure, I'll take the top 5 upside. But the guy hasn't really thrown a football healthy since, 2015?
Yep.
He played 2016 hurt, and he missed all 2017. So there's got to be questions of rust, and it really depends on cost.
All
right. Cearfoss, what you got for Andrew Luck?
I mean, I'm going to take the chance on his injuries over Jordan Reed's, but I mean, I want it. Andrew Luck has to be healthy. I mean, it's been, a year and a half now?
Yep.
And he's so good if he's playing starting, and I know it's going to take maybe a few games to get the dust off the shoulder, but man, if he's healthy, he's going to be there. Like, I'll take him over a lot. I'd have to take him borderline top 5 if I knew he was there. All but right. I have him head straight now at 11 or 10.
All right, Melosi, what do you think of Andrew Luck?
I got him at 14. I mean, yeah, obviously the health is the big issue. But I don't know why we really need to gamble at the quarterback position. It's so deep, especially for one quarterback leagues. I don't know. I feel like I would have to take another quarterback coming into the draft, and I don't really want to roster 2 coming out of it. So maybe if we're drafting closer to the season, I'm a little more okay with Luck after we see him in preseason or something. But right now, I don't really want to gamble on the quarterback because I don't want to lose on the quarterback. So
fair enough. I actually took him in the Scott Fishbowl League in the 3rd round. Actually, I wanted to go quarterback early in that league just because it is 2 quarterbacks, and the way my division was going, quarterbacks are coming off the board pretty quickly. I think there were 6 quarterbacks before I drafted in the second round. So I think that I took him, and I'm hoping for that upside that he does end up being a top 5 quarterback, because if not, I'm going to be screwed. So let's hope that Andrew Luck is back healthy. All right, we're going to wrap it up here with this last guy, a guy on my team, once again, the 49ers. And a lot of talk about him only starting basically half a season over his career, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll start with you, Melosi, this time. What are your thoughts on Jimmy G?
I like Jimmy G. Again, in a 1-quarterback league, I'm not sure he's a guy that I'm going to be reaching on, because I don't really believe in the targets that he has around him in San Francisco. But 8.8 yards per attempt is insane. It's very, very good than his 5 starts, 6 total games in San Francisco last year. Touchdowns weren't there, but that's gonna come back up. He just had a 3.9 touchdown percent. So I don't know. I like him. I don't really know if I'm ever going to draft him, but I could definitely see him taking a huge step here and making me regret not drafting him.
Fair enough. Cearfoss, what are your thoughts on Jimmy G?
I'm not high on Jimmy G. I have him very low for my quarterback rankings. I have him at QB 19. I don't believe in a guy I'm not going to take a quarterback who can't run the ball with a touchdown interception ratio under 2. It's just not going to produce in fantasy like that. I'd take the chance at a lower rate on lower ADP at a lot of guys, and it's unproven. He threw way too many picks and a little opportunity. I don't despise the weapons around him, but I'm just not buying it on him yet. We've seen the guy back up Tom Brady get huge contracts before with doing nothing. I think this is just going to be a repeat of it.
All right. Katz, what you got for Jimmy G?
Jimmy G is the greatest quarterback of all time. It's a fact. Can't argue with it. He's never lost. I've got him.
And I'm signing off.
I've got him at QB 6. I am all in on Jimmy G. He's legit. The talent was always there. Scouting him out of college, I thought he was the most talented QB in that draft. He got trapped behind Tom Brady, obviously. He's unlike Matt Castle, who only started in New England and performed well. We already saw Garoppolo go to San Francisco mid-season, have a couple weeks to learn the playbook, and then show up with the likes of, listen, I love Marquise Goodwin, but he's not a true wide receiver for one, and he's throwing a Kendrick Bourne and Trent Taylor, and he's performing, and he's winning games. He's lighting up the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. The touchdown to interception ratio does not concern me, because he led so many drives down the field where they just settled in field goals. I think there was one game where Robbie Gould had 6 or 7 field goals.
Yep.
That's just not not sustainable. Those are going to end in touchdowns. Garoppolo is 100% legit. Once like the guys like Brady and Breeze are gone in a couple of years, Garoppolo can hand it to be the best quarterback in the NFL.
Wow. I hope you're right, because I'm a 49ers fan, but I hope you're right. I will say, and I've brought them before with Ryan, with the touchdown interception ratio, it's a little bit skewed, because I think he had, I believe, 5 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 5. One of them was a ridiculous interception where he hit Marcus Goodwin over the middle. Marcus Goodwin caught the ball. The DB literally on their way down put his hand inside the ball, underneath the ball, and ripped it out as they were going to the ground. So I don't put that pick on Garoppolo. The other pick that he threw was the end of the half Hail Mary that got picked off, so you can't put that on him. And then as Jason mentioned, I think he threw at least 3 touchdowns that were called back on penalties. So if we cut those down, if we can get those penalties, actually I think on one drive he literally threw 3 touchdowns on one drive, and all 3 of them were called back. Ended up in being a field goal. I think if we can clear up those penalties, if we can, just move the ball and get the ball down into the red zone, I think he'll be fine. With that all of that said, I still think I'm a little bit hesitant to have him as my QB1. I actually own him in my dynasty league, and I just went out and made a trade to get Cam Newton just to sort of shore up my quarterback position, because I've had troubles with my quarterbacks in the past, and I wasn't comfortable going in with Jimmy Garoppolo as my number 1 quarterback, so I made a trade for Cam Newton. So I think he's going to be good. I just would hedge my bets a little bit and not go crazy, and draft him as your quarterback 1 if you can avoid it. But yeah, I think I do like Garoppolo in the long run. All right, man, that was good stuff, guys. I appreciate all of y'all coming on. I know we're running a little bit long. I kind of expected it when you got 4 people on here. I've kind of been following the Facebook comments here, and unfortunately, I think my audio issues are still sort of rearing their ugly head. I'm going to have to try to figure out what's going on with that. But I think everybody but me has an echo, so I'm going to try to fix that, get back into the studio, and figure out what's going on with that, because it happened the last time, too. But again, guys, thanks for coming on. I know it was short notice. I think we talked about doing this yesterday, and we got it put together, and now we're here doing it. So I appreciate all y'all coming on. I'm going to just go around the room here and just kind of get your Twitter info and where everybody can find you at. So, Jason, where can we find you at?
All right, find me on Twitter at Jason Katz 13. You can check me out on the Fantasy Forensics podcast. You can follow my podcast at Fantasy Forensic. And the websites I write for, fftoday.com, rotoballer.com, and fantasypros.com.
All right. Melosi, what you got for your Twitter, and where can we find you at?
Twitter is at RTMelos, MELOS. Just write at Fantasy Pros right now. If you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, I'm usually retweeting a bunch of really stupid tweets. But yeah, just hit me up there if you guys ever want anything.
All right, good stuff. And Ryan, I know you said it before, but let's go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you at.
I'm Ryan Cearfoss at fantasyfbconnect.com. You can find me on Fantasy Football 24/7 Dynasty. I write for GoingFor2.com. I'm on this podcast a lot. And I also write for DominateFantasyFootball.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. That's pretty much it. And we'll catch y'all next time. I want to get y'all back on the podcast. I got a vacation coming up next week, but maybe after my vacation, we can get y'all back on and we'll talk about whatever's going on in the NFL world right now.
All right. Sounds good, man.
Good stuff, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
Vacation
Take care.
coming up next week, but maybe after my vacation.